Good morning and aloha. Welcome to CLIC Live. I'm your host, Craig Sullivan. Today is part 2 with Mr. Bruce Ford of Lodging Econometrics. But before we bring Bruce out, I do want to thank our sponsor for this live show, and that is our good friends at Red Roof Franchising. Give Matt Hostetler and his team a call. Let him know that I sent you. Also, Matt and his team have been a founding sponsor of CLIC Connect, our regular show, which was coming back in about 2 weeks. So producer Danny and I have a lot to do with that show, and we're getting ready for our 10th season. So come join us and celebrate with us. Also, hopefully, you've seen this graphic. Bruce and I are talking about this, okay? So construction pipeline across the country, maybe some international. If not this show, we'll do a part 3. But really looking forward to this conversation. I want to thank everybody that participated in the last show. We hit a record number of views on that on our YouTube channel of 7,200. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully we'll do better this time. Also, if you want to ask questions, please do so in the comments, and we will be asking those questions to Mr. Ford, and we'll go from there. So with no further ado, the one, the only, the Senior Vice President of Lodging Econometrics, Bruce Ford. Welcome.
It's a pen and ink kind of day, Craig. What can I say?
It is, brother. Good to see you. How are you?
I am good for a midday Wednesday here in the dog days of August as we send the kids back to school and contemplate our fall travel season, of course, which is going to ramp up here pretty quick coming up. So lots of planning and strategizing and budgeting and all kinds of fun things. So I'm sure I am not in the minority on that.
Not at all. Not at all. So, Bruce Ford, we made it through Southern California. Let's pick up this conversation where we left off. We were heading up the coast to the Central Coast, and for the market track, this will include Monterey, Salinas, Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, San Luis Obispo, Paso Robles, Oxnard, and Ventura. So what's happening with hotels and development and PIPs and new construction?
Well, a lot of those markets are underbranded, Craig.
Yeah.
We would probably label Central California coast and a number of the cities that you've mentioned there as an underbranded market area. And why is that? Well, historically hotels, particularly in California, had a very high level of unbranded assets.
Yeah.
And as time has evolved and as more brands have come about, those select service products, in proximity to the resort type amenities are really beginning to break through in a lot of these types of cities. And I think we're starting to see some of that in the Central California coast. Now, keeping in mind, okay, when you have beautiful resorts in Monterey, you can go right to Pebble Beach, okay? They have 4 hotels. There's no brands to be seen. Yeah. Okay, now they don't need any because it's Pebble Beach. Okay,
right.
But at the same time, there's been such a push for these soft brands and such a push for these, kind of boutique brands. You would think that someday we're going to see that. You would also think that some of the other resorts would be looking at the opportunity with a major franchise company to still maintain their uniqueness and still maintain their boutique style, but yet hook up to a reservation system that is going to be less expensive than the traditional third party. When I say traditional, they're untraditional, but the third party resellers out there have to think that these conversations are happening. And in Central California, we're seeing 51 projects with about 6,000 guest rooms, 15 of which are under construction today, and then another 17 conversions and renovations that are occurring. I would label that, for the size of that market, to be pretty active.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, considering, room count at most of those hotels up there is substantially lower than what you find in Anaheim and Los Angeles and various other areas.
And I certainly think that the redevelopment is on.
Yeah.
And bringing some of these franchises to locations where they've never been before. The franchise companies have Google services too, and they know exactly where they should be looking, and they're able to narrow in to those places, and they go talk to their experienced developers who are owners and operators in those markets, and they find a way to make it happen. And it's consistently shown that over the years.
Absolutely. And you know this as well as I do. A great franchise salesperson has got two or three or more development sites that they've been, working on for a long time.
Hmm.
And, they'll take it to their top 5, top 10 clients and see if they want to do a hotel there. It's one of the, the other benefits of, working with a brand. You get into some of these sites and development opportunities before anybody else does.
If you
Um,
start looking at the larger franchise companies, you can have dozens of price points that
yeah.
you can play with in some of these markets, in addition to the product type too,
Yeah.
whether it's select service, extended stay, dual brand, shared site, do a full service with a small select service and put a conference center in the middle. I mean,
Yep.
we've seen that succeed in other places with less land needed than ever before.
And I think that's a big part of this new development trend. It's the amount of land that footprint has shrunk dramatically from the 90s and the early 2000s. So I'm
It's going to
loving
be a big part of the story here going forward, Craig, as we, pull out of this. I hate to hesitate to call it, the pandemic slump, but it
yeah.
certainly was, from a real estate development perspective, a slump. I think one of the things we're also going to find, in Central California coast would meet this criteria, is that places that have a lot of outside resort space, resort activity, even if it's not at the property per se, but it's within proximity, these are the places that succeeded overwhelmingly during the pandemic because they had a place to be outside that was, quote, safer. And as a result, they're in many cases reinvesting in re-improving their properties now that they saw profitability.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was part of the game plan with our friends at Pacifica Hotels. They dominate, part of the Central Coast market, and they were running 90% occupancy once the hotels reopened.
And
So
we will see a few more of those markets as we go around the Western United States. We'll see a few more of those markets and how that is highlighted in just, more cases than the coast of California. But
yeah,
to move along in California and to talk about kind of that next space where we're going to the Bay Area, the note that I wrote is that I don't think San Francisco can possibly take another negative sentiment article about the hospitality market there. It's been well written, it's been overdone,
yeah,
overcooked. Okay, San Francisco is a market that suffered dramatically when international travel did not and has not still ramped up again.
yeah,
But also, downtown San Francisco and the urban San Francisco Oakland area has also suffered from a lack of occupancy in the offices.
yeah.
And they've suffered from other economic situations that have kind of brought the appeal of that area down. And it is going to take time to get that reshuffled and reworked. But the one thing that's in their favor is the Moscone Convention Center is refit, redeveloped, ready for occupancy, and hotels are hopeful that sale is going to turn. And we keep watching, but I'm not
Yeah.
the expert on that for the rest of it. So I think you would find San Francisco and Oakland still a little bit maligned in terms of pipeline size. San Francisco with 26 projects, that's not a record low, but that's certainly low. Oakland has a little bit more. Rooms about the same, both about 4,000 rooms and some mild renovation and conversion. But, there was a time, Craig, when San Francisco had top 5 project status in the industry. And that just
Yeah.
hasn't been the case now for the past 5 or 6 years. And it was beginning to go in the other direction, down towards a lower pipeline, even prior to the pandemic. So because the Moscone was going under renovation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that you still again, travel from Asia Pacific into San Francisco is still off. Last time I checked, it was about 40% off. That's a huge number.
yep.
And I completely concur with you on the negative reports about San Francisco. I actually like what their mayor and the local government's doing. They're getting involved. They've had some really good success with some events up there. It's not nearly back to the numbers where it was because of multiple events, but certain local events that some of the tech companies have in the city have turned out really well, and they've committed to be back. We've also got we've got World Cup and a couple of other things coming into the Bay Area over the next 2 to 3 years, which are going to help out dramatically as well. But we need to get that Asia Pacific travel back and a few other things. But I look at
you just basically look at like Candlestick Park going away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That had 30 nights of sellout.
Yeah.
That is no longer there. That's in Santa Clara now.
Yeah.
So just some of those things, it does take a while to recover from that.
Yeah. It really does. And the cities, it's going to take some time, but I have confidence in their mayor. I think they're going to do fine. What's your opinion on Oakland right now? Because I'm finding it to be a bit of a mixed bag.
Well, it had a big wave of development before the pandemic occurred.
Yeah.
So it opened a lot of hotels into a struggling market ultimately. Yeah. So that takes time to work itself out as well. Yeah. There have been acquisitions there, but I know there are still some that are in possession, some foreclosure, certainly properties that need to be recapitalized as they go forward. So my take is it's a little bit healthier than San Francisco, but certainly not separated from the plight in both places.
Yeah, and I don't know if Oakland's got a beautiful convention center with a Marriott full service attached to it.
Yep.
That and I don't know the last time that convention center was renovated. I just frankly forgot to look it up. But the last time I was up there, it was in dire need of that. And I had some friends that owned the Marriott at the time. I think they still do, and also a courtyard across the street. So they had that economy of scale of having those two properties right there, and being tied
when there was no economy to scale. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Understood, for sure. As we look around some of the other parts of the West, certainly not looking to exclude areas we may not talk about today. Of course, as I mentioned in the last call, Craig, Lodging Econometrics tracks every zip code, every county, every area around the country. So if you're not hearing anything today about your markets or your area of interest, please do not hesitate to contact us through the website, lodgingeconometrics.com. Or, of course, you can email me directly, bruce@lodgingeconometrics.com. We're happy to communicate on that. So as we look up towards Seattle, Craig.
Yes, sir.
And the beautiful Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
We find Seattle on the rise for projects. They're up to 33 now. Seattle has seen some projects begin construction this year, a couple larger ones. They also have 12 renovations and conversions going on in that marketplace today. And I would consider it to be, Seattle into that average activity, if you will. They're going to have some of the World Cup games up there as well.
Yeah.
And certainly, I think, with Russell Wilson out of town now, it's a different story. And in terms of what Seattle sees over the long term, there's been a lack of full service development downtown. Some people might say that it doesn't have enough full service hotels to really be a big convention destination. And I know that's, quote, on the list for that marketplace in terms of trying to attract new, fresh, full service urban center developments to lift all boats.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen those announcements yet, but they are, quote, anticipated as we go forward. And Seattle is a very well developed, defined suburban market area, as there are some other big suburban areas. And they saw, like Bellevue and those types of areas, saw a significant push of development in the last cycle as well. So it always is kind of the final filter, if you will, when looking at a marketplace to say, did they have a construction wave in the last uptick or not? And Seattle was definitely one of those markets that did.
Yeah.
So I think this will be a subtle market in subtle growth, sans for those couple big full service projects that they're really looking for downtown.
Nice. I'm liking that. Hey, my friend, let's take a look at our friends over at Denver. What's happening there?
So Denver, not an unbranded marketplace, but certainly as you spread out towards the mountainous regions outside of Denver, they do have a lot of unbranded resorts, but they have also seen some consolidation in the ski mountain business out there. And they've also seen a wave of branded developments up into the mountains. So I'm not entirely sure that we'll see a lot of mountainous development, but what we are focusing on is in the urban market in Denver. Today we have 70 projects, and I think we're getting another wave of suburban development also in some of the suburban areas of Denver. We currently have just over 10,000 rooms in the new construction pipeline, which would indicate a larger project size with 70 projects. Of course, Denver still has that large Gaylord project, as well as some other large full service renovations and conversions. Now, the size on Denver is interesting because, in the 70 projects with 10,000 guest rooms, we'll put them on the larger end of size per project, but also that would be true on their conversions and renovations with 16 projects with over 4,000 guest rooms. So that would indicate a lot of the urban center projects are renovating and the larger suburban projects are renovating as well. And of course, Denver, if you were looking to define a market that has a lot of beautiful outside spaces, I think we're right there, right?
Yeah, and Denver's had some really good openings recently. I mean, our friends at 24/7 Hotel and Choice Hotels just opened up a Cambria over there 2 weeks ago, maybe 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another well-anticipated hotel that opened, and it just seems like they're on a roll where these hotels are now starting to open their doors and create a lot of buzz in that downtown and suburban markets for Denver. So I really like that Denver market. I think it's got a lot of possibilities.
So I think the tracking says that the projects that are opening now are obviously dragging through the pandemic a little bit, and were ultimately a bit delayed in being completed, but now are in fact being completed. So there's a little bit of swell in the pipeline because there hasn't been a lot of starts, but there are more openings coming. So Denver feels like it will be openings early and then perhaps late in the cycle as well. So the filter there is, again, a lot of branded assets up into the mountains that were kind of roadside, highway side type developments on the way to many of the resort destinations. We saw that in the last cycle. And then in the downtown urban area, we've seen hotels that were in the pipeline or just starting at the beginning of the pandemic that are now opening. A little bit of softness in the middle of where we may see a little bit of a lack of starts as a result of financing. But once we do see the starts, we'll see a push of openings in 26 and 27.
Love it. Hey, you know what? Let's gamble a little bit. Let's go to Vegas, baby.
Vegas. Well, there's a market that's changed. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Constantly reinventing itself.
indeed, and the highest resort fees in the world, I think. So what is happening there? Well, the strip market, okay, has seen its development, has seen its reinvention. The latest reinvention is, of course, many of the MGM properties joining the Marriott reservation system. The Sands and Venetian and Palazzo selling, uh, and the redevelopment of that. Of course, the Mirage closing and the redevelopment of that. We already had the Hard Rock
Yeah.
vacate their site over there, and that's now become a Virgin Hotel. There was an announcement the other day of a new Wynn property coming in Las Vegas, which would be significant. The Fontainebleau opening, significant. Um, but for the most part, Craig, there are not many pending imminent developments on the strip.
Yeah.
Most of it is kind of continuing the redevelopment. The Horseshoe and Bally's and Paris still have some changing of the room inventory between the resorts that is not quite completed yet,
Yeah.
which we'll see soon enough. But I think the removal of the maybe 3,000 or 4,000 rooms of the Mirage is going to kind of change the operating dynamics for a little while.
Yeah.
But what we are finding, which is interesting, is that Allegiant Stadium, where they play football, we forgot the Tropicana closing,
Yeah.
and the Tropicana going to be imploded prior to the F1 races in
Yep.
November, scheduled for early October. So the removal of both of those sets of room from the inventory is going to kind of change some of the dynamics. And of course, MGM has been renovating all their properties in anticipation of this conversion over to the Marriott brands. But also, they have a 1, 2, 3. They have the Delano, the Mandalay Bay, the Luxor, the Excalibur, and even connecting all the way to New York, New York. But they have a tram system on those
Right.
hotels. They are connected to the stadium. And so they're benefiting a lot, but they're also, if you go one further past New York, New York, they have the Park MGM there. And that Park MGM is going to be one of the Marriott brands, but that's where the T-Mobile Arena is.
Yeah.
So on that side of the street, that's all MGM. Okay. And lots of hotel rooms feeding that. And of course, Allegiant Stadium, not the biggest football stadium in the NFL. Craig, do you know it seats less than 60,000 people for an NFL game?
I'm surprised.
That's like 30 grand less than SoFi.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say SoFi is over 100. So,
But they
yeah.
built it as, to be a luxurious experience,
Right.
to be an experience that meets demand at the appropriate price point
Yeah.
so that they can sell out the high-end tickets because they have enough buyers for those. So what we've seen with the Legion, and it's kind of beginning to ripple a little bit, because I think the days of 90,000 seat NFL stadiums are likely over. They're just too big.
Yeah. I
And
agree with you.
in some places they make sense, like Los Angeles or Dallas, but I think for the most part, we're kind of beginning to settle in at this 60 to 65,000 is about the right number. And that works for concerts. It works for other convention style events. It works for um, football. And of course, when we do things like, NCAA tournaments, that's a good size.
Right.
So, Las Vegas is going to get a whole new stadium on the strip, baseball stadium. I mean, it is anticipated it will be all approved, Craig, right?
Yes.
So
Yes. Shortly.
we think so.
Yeah.
But much of Las Vegas also is kind of that suburban circular spread.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about this on the last show, but in kind of southeastern Las Vegas, but also in North Las Vegas, the pipeline's impressive. It holds more than the strip does. Now, the strip obviously has a significant amount of room supply, but we are seeing developments. We're seeing swanky resorts in suburban market areas in Las Vegas. and they're actually doing well and succeeding and gathering conventions and gathering visitors who say, you know what, the Strip is crazy. I don't want to go there. And, if I had my druthers, I mean, I like Las Vegas. I've always loved Las Vegas, but the Strip sometimes is a bit much. Okay. And
Yeah, it
particularly
can
when
be.
it's 125 degrees.
Yeah,
So, um, I can tell you for sure that, my next thought, if I do go to Las Vegas for a vacation, it's kind of a 50-50. I'm going to spend half the time off the Strip and half the time on the Strip.
Strip, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, it's funny because it doesn't seem like their housing development slowed down. I know they've got some infrastructure problems. They've got some educational problems because of the explosive growth that they've had for the past 10, 15 years. But we've also got a new layer of that coming. Believe it or not, Warner Brothers Discovery is investing over $8 billion into studio facilities there.
So
And
wait a
you've,
minute. We have open tracts of desert land that are going to be developed.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
there's Las Vegas is one of those places, Craig, that
yeah,
has plenty of land.
yeah. And it's funny. Our next market that we're going to is also got a huge studio, and Netflix is thrown in. I think $6 to $7 billion for the expansion onto that new studio. And you've got a lot of people all of a sudden. These studios are becoming very viable outside of Los Angeles, Vancouver, and the Carolinas, and even in Atlanta to a degree.
Yeah.
And they're it's a boom town for Vegas. And our next market, Phoenix. We're staying in the desert. I'm detecting a theme here, Bruce.
I think
So
so. Hey, those open outdoor spaces that people
yeah,
wanted to go to,
yeah,
okay, with less income tax than other places,
yeah,
okay, less real estate tax than other places. When they thought about where can I work remotely and enjoy a quality of life that I want at the rates that I want, they have
yeah,
found Arizona and Nevada to be appealing.
yeah,
And so, but also on your production studio side, Craig, as we go to Phoenix, if you think about the differences in how these shows are produced today,
yeah,
who is controlling the production of that, and the digital nature with which you're doing production today compared to even 10 years ago, even
yeah,
20 years ago,
yeah.
you're not building a set to make a show.
No.
You can project the set into the show. And believe it or not, that is tech that is here today, and they are absolutely going to build that into those studios, and it will
Oh
make the
yeah.
production of some of those things go so much faster. And with that upfront investment, you can use that across a variety of platforms. So in Phoenix, we saw the commercial development and the commercial infrastructure investment in and around Phoenix, and it has made a world of
Yeah.
difference. Even small towns where they are contiguous to these larger developments, okay, like where they put the football stadium in Arizona, that's not in downtown Phoenix.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
But those connected towns, even little towns like Chandler and Gilbert, they are benefiting from where that stadium is. And they are seeing that select service development, those new brands coming there, where they haven't really had a hotel infrastructure before to speak of. They are now building that hotel infrastructure today, and they've convinced developers to come join them. And this is really a great success story, okay, for why these franchise companies have decided to put these brands together and create a lineup that has multiple layers of rate, which is really the driver for many of these developments, because you can select the rate that makes sense and the distribution type that makes sense, and you can put them together. And so we're seeing that really all over these larger suburban spread markets, and Phoenix is one of them for sure. And Phoenix, I go every year. Uh,
Yep.
it's like a rite of passage, and this year it gets to be October. And so I'm looking forward to seeing some of the new infrastructure. And Phoenix is, continued to really grow as a luxury market. When I started going there 25 years ago, I would not have called Phoenix a luxury market. They had one Ritz-Carlton, I think, and it was on the corner of Camelback and somewhere, and it was like, that doesn't look luxurious. It was that town Scottsdale. I didn't even know what that was back then. It's like, wait a minute, this is a resort in a city? What is that?
What is this? I don't get it.
But today, dramatically different, and really more luxury in Phoenix than we've ever seen, as you know, they continue to just create a different economic driver out there, which is great to see.
Yeah, they're dominating that market. And you know, it's you're right. You know, over the past 25, 27 plus years now, watching the growth out there, it's been rather amazing. I was with one group and we had some hotels there, and my whole gripe was I did not want to be there in July. Okay, it was 3,000 degrees, and it was like no. But you know, it's a beautiful community, and you know the growth that they're experiencing. You know, you're looking at, you know, I mean, you and I were talking, you know, before the show, Gilbert. I mean, you know, the growth there and what they're doing with hotels. I mean, I think that's, you know, I think you've made some really good points on that. You want to elaborate on what that city's doing anymore?
Well, the town itself really took an interest in seeing their new supply and their hotel infrastructure continue to improve, and they put the resources behind it. They made the phone calls, they got the meetings, and today, you know, the results are right there as they have begun some of these projects, and some are scheduled to begin soon enough. So, I mean, towns that make the investment in hospitality, they typically are going to get the right partners, are going to come to them, and they're going to find success. Hotel room night tax is a real thing for revenue for a town, and it makes a difference.
It does.
It sure does.
Well, my friend, we are out of time. So I think we need to have at least one or two more shows, talk about the rest of the United States, and then maybe a little bit of international. We can visit our northern cousins and our southern cousins, and maybe go over to Europe and Africa as well. What do you think? You up for all that?
I always enjoy a good conversation with my friend Craig.
I love it, brother. Thank you. Bruce, thank you for great information as always. You had so much, you and your team at Lodging and Econometrics had so much to our industry, and I thank you for that and being family. I really appreciate you, brother.
You're welcome, Craig. Visit lodgingeconometrics.com. We have put out a number of press releases. You can get all the samples you're interested in there, and any of the markets that we talked about today are available for instant purchase on the website.
There we go. Do you want to give them a phone number or an email address to get a hold of you?
It's Bruce at lodgingeconometrics.com, or you can hit the contact us on the website, and you'll get you the service you're looking for.
There you go. Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you, and we'll get something scheduled as soon as I wrap up the show. Thank you.
You bet, Craig.
Thank you for joining us. Great information. That includes most of the Western U.S. You know, Hawaii is a different market. There's not a lot of new construction there, but I'm sure Bruce can pull up some data for us so we can do a quick snapshot on that. We'll be hitting some other areas in the country. I do want to thank our friends at Red Roof Franchising again for making the show possible and us being able to bring this information from Bruce Ford and Lodging Econometrics. Also, March 5th and 6th, 2025, the 8th annual California Lodging Investment Conference. Don't leave your future up to the Magic 8 Ball. Come join us, and you can hear from everybody about the California market. We've got management companies, owner, operators, brands. Bruce Ford is our keynote speaker. We've got 3 great panels, and we've also got a lunchtime keynote from AH&LA on legislative matters in the state. We do have a new home. We will be at the Westin in beautiful Long Beach. So you've got 3 airports to choose from. You've got Long Beach, John Wayne, and always LAX. But more on that later. We'll be running a special for the attendees right after the lodging conference. So thank you all, and thank you to our friends at Red Roof. We will see you in the next episode. Aloha.